Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, a big week for venture capital in Indiana. An Indy company brings virtual reality to company training. Sun King spills details on its new brewery. A new weapon in the opioid battle gets approved. How will Indiana fund 4 years of major sporting events? Culture Matters looks at First Internet Bank, and our Insiders panel looks at the week's top stories. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. 2 weeks after we talked about a potential venture capital crisis in Indiana, the state celebrates a big week for VC. 2 startups landed close to $30 million in funding. So what does it mean? TechPoint Chief Executive Officer Mike Langelier joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick with some perspective.
All right, let's talk about these 2 companies, Springbuck and Xylo. Springbuck with $20 million, Xylo $9.3 million. As you said, this really a monumental week. How so?
Yeah, it's been remarkable. These are 2 feature parts of that week. These 2 deals are significant in a couple different ways. They're the largest. They're among the largest of at their stage in Indiana venture history. And so it certainly means that money is going to get poured into hiring people and to growing the companies, and so that's significant. What I also love to see about it is the investors that are part of the mix. You have the local support from Alos Ventures, Hyde Park, High Alpha, Elevate Ventures that have helped to get those companies going. But in this round, they brought in venture capital firms that were coming from all over the country. So Springbuck had 2 major venture capital firms, one from the Bay Area and one from Seattle. And then Xylo had a myriad of different VCs, Bessemer Ventures, GGV, and even some corporate venture firms, Slack and Salesforce, that invested into those companies. And so what that tells us is a couple different things that I love. One of them is that these companies are competing on a national, international scale because these VCs are making selective choices about who to invest in. And the second is that we have executives in these companies that are seeking to be market leaders, not just to build sustainable companies, but to build ones that are going to compete on a national, international stage.
2 weeks ago, Don Alcolano from Alos Ventures, very active venture firm, was on the show talking about his concern about a potential crisis in early stage VC.
Yeah, I think we absolutely do need to pour more funds there. And the reality is that we do not have very many venture capital firms here in Indiana. Alos is a great example, but we do need more. Elevate Ventures is doing great work too. We have to continue on the pedal there. I'm given hope though by the Next Level Fund that we got done last year. $250 million fund, the largest of its kind in the country, the cleanest structure. Lots of kudos to the governor and to the legislative leadership for helping to get that, to make that happen. And that's going to be a honeypot that's going to attract venture capital firms from all over the country, and I think we'll see as a benefit. But we gotta get rolling.
How much does success breed success play into this too? You look at High Alpha, Xylo, a High Alpha company. The companies they're spinning out, the innovation, the cool ideas that are percolating now in Indiana.
Yeah. You know, this is it is absolutely critical. Investment is a confidence game, and so all of these investors want to have confidence that their investments are going to go into companies and places where they can be successful. And the fact that we have things like the exact targets, the interactive intelligence, Angie's List, Perio kind of stories where this success has happened, and that we have staples like Salesforce that are here. All of those things help to build the confidence factor that make this even more investable place.
Got to ask you about Amazon. Amazon, that second headquarters project, $5 billion deal, 50,000 jobs. Indianapolis making the cut to the 20 finalists. You contend that that's a big tech story too. Regardless of the outcome, that's going to be positive.
It is. I mean, that's a big factor for Amazon is the tech ecosystem and the talent pipeline. But there's a lot I can't say that nobody can right now. It's all in process. But I think getting to that. Of the 238 applications, getting to the top 20 is a huge statement, and that we can all be proud of, because that was a national, very public process, very kind of objectively, empirically run, and you had the usual suspects, and then you had a host of companies that are places that are surprises, and Indy's one of them.
And you're saying that this makes a statement to other tech companies, other big deals that may be out there.
It does.
Okay, Mike Langelier, CEO at TechPoint. As always, Mike, great perspective. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Still to come, Sun King is coming to the yard and an innovative tool in the battle against addiction. But first, Indianapolis-based Vision 3 says it is using virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality to help companies with training. The company boasts clients including Dow AgroSciences and Rolls-Royce. The idea, learners remember what they do better than they remember what they're told. Vision 3 partner Jeff White came in studio with details.
Okay, let's talk about, everybody hears about as perhaps as experienced virtual reality, but typically maybe in an entertainment venue. But increasingly, and what Vision 3 is about, is really taking that technology and leveraging it with the corporate world.
That's exactly right. It provides so many possibilities for corporations, to marketing, to training, and specifically in customer support training as an example. So what Rolls-Royce is doing is they sell an engine to one of their clients. Now they now have the capability of really showing their clients the inside of that engine that they would never have that ability without virtual reality in the environment we create.
Yep, we're going to look at some really cool video in a minute. But the technology, essentially, you're using gaming software to create these environments, right?
Well, we know how well gaming engages today's audience, the younger generation. And it's so real. So we take that platform and we apply it with CAD files and so forth and create this dynamic environment that gives one the idea that they're really there no matter where they are. They could be anywhere in that environment and really understand a product.
All right, you mentioned Rolls-Royce. I think we have some video of that partnership. And again, very complex industry that they can use your solutions for training and for a number of factors.
What you'll learn in the video there, that you'll see that the Rolls person has the opportunity when they're in the space to actually grab parts and look at it with their hands without the controllers, because we're utilizing hardware technology that's available to us and using it in the best way for somebody to grab a part. The instructor can talk to them about the importance of that part and really be immersed in the environment.
Another one of your clients, a great example, is Dow AgroSciences as well.
Yes, Dow has done a really neat thing. We created a food warehouse environment for Dow with the opportunity for the pest control technician, believe it or not, to catch rodents. And so therefore, it was a fun little game that we created and an educational training program to help put those traps in the right place throughout the environment.
Well, and as you look at it, and there's so much talk about workforce and workforce training and the need for training. This too, you touch on the remote nature. So if you're a Rolls-Royce, you can have people all over the globe engaged in the environment. Right?
It's a really effective cost effectiveness for companies, in the sense that Rolls can be in Indianapolis and train somebody in England or in Iraq for them to get a greater understanding about their engine.
Yeah. As we wrap up, Jeff, talk about growth opportunities, specific industries. Indiana's a big manufacturing state, but so what specific sectors are you looking at for growth?
Yeah, we are fortunate to be in Indiana with the great number of manufacturers are here. Aerospace is another key area, medical devices and healthcare. We do a lot of things, a lot of businesses with them and continue to grow in those areas because they see the value of using technology to better tell their story.
Using technology to train, to market, and a number of things in the business community. Vision 3, Indianapolis-based company, Jeff White. Thanks for being here. Look forward to talking to you again.
Appreciate it, Gary. Thank you.
Later on in the podcast, an innovation in the battle against opioids is coming from Indiana, and the state looks to raise funds for major sporting events. But now, Indianapolis-based Sun King Brewing is planning a new specialty production craft brewery and tap room at the Yard in Fishers. Co-founder Clay Robinson joined IIB with more details on the $2.5 million project.
Let's talk about this announcement. It's been several years in the making, but a new brewery and a tap room in what is really an emerging entertainment and restaurant district there in Fishers.
Yeah, certainly. Probably a little over 4 years ago, we met with Mayor Fadness and his team, and we talked about his vision for Fishers and the entrepreneurial spirit behind it all. And we were really stricken with what they wanted, and we decided and made a commitment to join the Fishers community and that we would have future growth there. So through a roundabout set of circumstances, we had our small batch tap room on 96th Street, but as Fishers has developed over the last few years, it's really pulled towards 116th Street, and the stuff that Thompson Thrift is doing at the Yard is really exciting with other culinary destination and a great opportunity to be surrounded by restaurant partners and local businesses.
I know you'll be phasing out of the 96th Street location as this new location, this large location, opens at the Yard in Fishers. Talk about the facility, the tap room and brewery, and what it's all about.
So it's got a 13,000 square foot facility that we're building. It opens up to the actual yard itself, so we've got green space right outside. One of the things we're missing that was out part of our original plans from the beginning and want was to incorporate indoor-outdoor space. So we'll have a patio that opens to the yard. We actually will have a rooftop patio that overlooks the yard. The brewing facility is actually about 4 times the size of what we've got currently on 96th Street, which will up our production, and once it's filled out would have the capacity for about 5,000 barrels of seasonal and specialty production, allowing us to continue to innovate.
Sun King continues on a real growth trajectory. You've got your downtown brewery, obviously, producing about 30,000 barrels there, I believe. You're building a brewery and a distillery in Carmel. Talk about that's a big project in downtown.
Yeah, the Carmel project is huge. That's been a partnership with Old Town Development, and it is in the Midtown area right there off the Monon, and there's a whole redevelopment of the Monon in between the Palladium and Main Street Carmel, and it was a project that we were super attracted to because, as you know, we helped change the laws to even make it legal for a brewery to own a distillery a number of years ago, and over time we've really been focused on beer and trying to make the best beer we can and build our infrastructure, but this opportunity came up and the space is perfect, and the distillery is in a 14,000 square foot building. We've got culinary partners in that building, and we're going to start playing with various distilled spirits.
Very good. Carmel to open in the spring or summer of
summer of this year.
This year, hard to believe, 2018. Talk about growth, because your growth trajectory there, again, at Sun King has been phenomenal. Your distribution, you've expanded outside the state of Indiana, Chicago and Louisville, looking for more opportunities too.
Yeah, so when we started, honestly, the whole growth for Sun King outpaced our wildest dreams. We hit our 5-year goal at year 1, and we hit our 10-year goal in year 3, and we've continued to grow. The industry's gotten a lot more competitive. We've done a really great job in Indiana, and this past year we found ourselves with enough capacity to actually start to service outside markets. So we went across the border to Chicago and Louisville, and for us it's not about growing necessarily fast, it's about growing smart and making the best beer we can and giving our people opportunities to grow. All
right. Clay Robinson, Sun King Brewing Company, continued expansion. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, how will Indy pay for major sports events coming to town? And we look at the culture of First Internet Bank. But first, an Indiana company says it's the first in the world to commercialize a device to help relieve the symptoms of opioid withdrawal. Innovative Health Solutions says that could eliminate the biggest hurdle for many people trying to overcome addiction. President Brian Carrico joined Kylie Valletta in the business of health.
So tell us about this device in layman's terms. What is it and how does it work?
So the device is called the NSS2 bridge, and this is a peripheral nerve stimulator. And what it is the device the size of a USB that's placed behind someone's ear, and then there are 3 electrodes that go on the side of someone's head that pierce the skin. They break the skin. This is not a painful procedure, and the electrical current from this technology accesses the brain and essentially blocks the part of the brain that fires these miserable withdrawal symptoms. So there's a part of the brain that causes the pain, the sweating, the nausea, the vomiting, and this device, in layman's terms, blocks that part of the brain to prevent these opioid withdrawal symptoms. And all of the research shows an 85% reduction in symptoms in less than 1 hour. And the device runs for 5 days, which in most instances is enough time for the patient to get the opioid that they are taking out of their system so they can move on to treatment and recovery.
So the biggest hurdle right now for your company is patients trying to pay for it. $600 out of pocket. And then you said also the procedure can cost money on top of that. So it can be up to $1,200 all in. So how is your company trying to help overcome this hurdle?
Sure. So we're working with the states currently, and we have been aggressively working with the states since November 15th when we got the approval. And we have multiple states in the country that have verbally told us they're very close to approving this. We expect several states to begin to cover this in the month of February, and we have a policy team in place that work with these states. Once that happens, the states will have covered this technology, and then the doctors will be able to bill an evaluation management code. And the cost really can go anywhere from $700 to $1,200 depending depending on the type of physician and who they're actually seeing and how much time the physician spends. We also are working with several different commercial insurance carriers to get this covered. But this is a process. It does take time, and we're working with them as we speak, but we do expect coverage to start coming through in multiple states this month.
And how is that process going here in Indiana?
We're working with Indiana. We're in process. I'm told that the process is moving along as it does. I know it's a 4 to 6 week process for them just to get through it, and we submitted mid to late December, so I'm expecting in the next week or two to have a meeting with Indiana to find out if coverage has been accepted or if we have some other things we have to do with the state.
Okay. And we talked about Indiana, and its rural communities seem to be really hit the hardest with opioid abuse. So getting them through that withdrawal and on to treatment, what could that mean big picture for these communities?
Well, number one, the most important thing about this device is it's an outpatient procedure so that patients in rural communities can actually get this. We all know in the addiction world that the biggest hurdle in the continuum of care in addiction is the opioid withdrawal period. There's always been help for other parts of this disease, but for the withdrawal period, to our knowledge, there is no other approved technology or drug for this. So in the rural communities, that now allows someone to get help, go home, come back and get treatment. And this allows people in the rural communities to get back to work. It allows people in the justice system, instead of going to jail, they now can get the bridge and treatment and recovery.
And also worth mentioning that this is manufactured in Jeffersonville at Key Electronics. You're headquartered in Versailles, but you also have a new location in Carmel.
Yes, so our headquarters are in Versailles, manufacturing in Jeffersonville, and then we have an office here in Carmel, Indiana. So we're an Indiana company.
And this is just the first application, you say, for this device. There are many more.
We do have research underway in about 10 different diagnoses, including post-op pain at Duke University, along with other universities, and we're hopeful in the next 12 to 18 months we have additional indications.
All right. Well, Brian, thank you very much for joining us today. Please keep us posted as the device moves along.
Thank you very much.
Later in the podcast, First Internet Bank takes the spotlight in our Culture Matters segment, and our panel of insiders takes on the week's top stories. But now, the Indiana Sports Corp has launched a major fundraising effort, looking to bring in $25 million to support a 4-year stretch of major events that the organization says will be unlike anything Indianapolis has seen in the past. It includes a Final Four, NBA All-Star Weekend, and the College Football National Championship. Indy Championships Fund CEO David Lewis joined Bill Benner for Inside Indiana Sports.
Before we get to that blockbuster series of events, first of all, congratulations on your retirement.
Well, thank you. Eli Lilly Company, as you well know, is a great company in this city, and to have had the honor of working there for 30 years and to had influence on what is happening at a national level as a company and as an individual has been a great honor for me.
Well, and you're going to step right full speed onto the throttle with this effort to fund these amazing series of events that we have coming to Indianapolis.
At the opening, you listed what is turning out to be an extraordinary year. Some of us have called it, this period of 2021, early 2022, when we have the NBA All-Star Game, we have the men's Final Four, we now have the college football playoffs national championship game, and then we've got things in between. We've got the Big Ten championships and the tournaments, and of course that's on top of all the things we do routinely here in Indianapolis. We're calling it, pejoratively, we refer to it as Indy's Year of Championships. And we like to think of this as kind of our next Super Bowl. It's of that proportion. We've estimated that the events over 2019 through 2022 will bring $600 to $700 million of economic benefit into our community. That's worth pursuing.
And it's simply extraordinary. You had a similar role in the run-up to the Super Bowl. In what ways will this be similar? What ways will it be different?
Well, a lot of people forget the effort that for the 2012 Super Bowl started in 2007, 2008, when we both in bid that we failed for 11, but then we won for the 12 Super Bowl. In both cases, we went in to the NFL owners with commitments for funding of $25 million for the host committee efforts in hand. And it was the Indianapolis business and Indianapolis community that stepped up to do that. In many respects, we will do the same model. This is the same model that has been so successful for the city. And I think similarities are really that we will take a common funding approach to these three events and the other events in between. That's We will raise the money. Our businesses, our leaders will hear from one group as we think about this period, this unprecedented period of sporting events. The second is that we want to challenge ourselves, just like we did for the Super Bowl, to think big. Jim Morris of the Pacers once challenged us to see every opportunity in its largest possible context. And I think we need to do that just as we did Super Bowl XLVI. And finally, we need to engage every generation in this city. And we really did try to do that in the Super Bowl. We need the I generation, we need the millennials, we need the Gen Xers, and we need the baby boomers, all engaged because we all care about the future of the city.
David, as we wrap up again, Indianapolis has always taken these events, and you just alluded to it, always been able to take these events to another level. How do we top ourselves in this particular case?
Well, in this case, we embrace this as the next step in presenting the city of Indianapolis to the world. We embrace this as big, if not better, than the Super Bowl that we so successfully executed in 2012. And we continue to come together and find strength in our city by the things that bring us together rather than things that divide us. And these are events that should bring us together as a community.
Well, again, congratulations on your retirement and best of luck in this very ambitious role, $25 million, hopefully raised for, again, an incredible series of lineup. David Lewis,
thank you, Bill.
Thanks for being on the show.
Still to come, our weekly panel of insiders gives perspectives on the top stories of the week. But first, when First Internet Bank launched nearly 20 years ago, many wondered how a branchless internet-only bank would fare. Today, it has 60,000 customers nationwide and $3 billion in assets. The Fishers Bank is the topic of our latest Culture Matters segment with First Person Managing Director Paul Ashley.
Interesting story. I remember when it launched, certainly people had raised eyebrows, a lot of doubters at the time. Interesting, the culture at the bank, really a reflection of its founder, David Becker, a serial entrepreneur who's given so much back to community, but really is an innovator at his core.
Yeah, so he started the bank wanting to be completely different, as the research you quoted makes light of. Yeah. And the regulators actually doubted him. Yeah. And it was all about being customer first, not focusing on the bricks and mortar. And he decided that he would pursue it. And the regulators told him, hey, listen, we normally have to have $5 million of capital, but you're going to need $15 million. And they thought they'd send him away. He came back 30 days later and said, what's next? Yeah. And he was ready to go. And not only was his vision to be different from a consumer experience, it was about being different from an employee experience.
Yeah, and as you fast forward to today, they've experienced tremendous growth, setting records from a financial standpoint. And really, David Becker's entrepreneurial mindset is a reflection of the culture in the company, everything from the hiring process to any number of things.
Yeah, so they're obviously different than most banks with no bricks and mortar. And they're different on who and why and how they hire. So a lot of folks would think this fintech company, this actual technically a bank, FDCI insured, would want to have former bankers come work for them. Well, no, in fact, that's not who they pursue first. They pursue people that are focused on excellent people skills and how to problem solve. And that's a very different process. And so their colleague selection process is certainly longer than most employers have, because they're really trying to get to the core of who are these folks? Are they capable of being customer focused?
Yeah, you look at their onboarding program, the referral program.
The referral program,
I think is an interesting aspect.
Yeah, so his team shared with us that 35% of the employees that work there today and growing are referred by current employees, because those folks know who they're looking for, and they get a better stick rate with those folks. They also incentivize it. They give $3,000 for a successful employee referral, which is, when you benchmark that against what their employers do, is quite high. They give half of it up front and half of it 6 months later.
Yeah, David Becker is very much a community-minded entrepreneur, and a number of aspects of the company reflect that as well, including really no limit on volunteer time off.
Yeah, so their policy is not that they don't have a policy, but they have unlimited VTO, or volunteer time off, which is rare. We normally see 4, 8, 10 hours a year, which is good, encouraging volunteerism. What they say at First Internet Bank is, we want you to impact the community. We want you to be passionate about what you're passionate about. As long as you coordinate it with your team and customer service doesn't fail, we'd love for you to volunteer as much as you can.
Yeah, how about the physical structure? We saw the dramatic artwork as you walk into the lobby area there, but I know they have a patio area for cookouts, a fitness area, all those types of things, the bells and whistles you come to expect of modern day companies.
Yeah, they do, and one of the cool focuses is that David has a passion for art, and particularly local artists. And all throughout the location in Fishers, you see artwork that features local artists that he's purchased or is featuring there. Probably the most staggering one is the mural when you walk into the atrium or the hub they have, and that atrium is used to entertain guests and clients. They have a break area there, and they have a lot of their activities there. And then, when the warm months happen, they use that deck that looks out, and boy, do they have a good time. A lot of competitions.
All right, First Internet Bank, great perspective. Paul Ashley, Managing Director at First Person. Culture Matters, another great segment. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary.
And finally this week, each week, a group of insiders offers perspective on the week's top stories. This week's panel includes Katz Corin Cunningham co-founding partner Norris Cunningham, Beck Communications Group President Lara Beck, and education expert Robert Herzog.
We'll start off with news from the economy this week. The unemployment rate came out for December, dropped another 0.3% to 3.4%. Lowest level, Robert, since I think July of last year. Anything to read into those numbers?
Yeah, I mean, very good sign as always. It's always better to be lower, and we love that the ticks continue to go down. The key numbers there, though, continue to be where the real struggle and challenges is median income numbers for Indiana residents and Hoosiers. And we're still lagging not only behind our partners, but really the rest of the country in that area. And it's a complex issue, digital divide, which, some of the things we talked about before we went live lead into that. But overall positive momentum, still need to do everything that we can to continue to build those median income numbers, because that's what's really going to drive the overall health of the economy in the state.
Gary, I would add, too, that the location, if you will, or the distribution of those jobs is interesting. So most of the gains were in manufacturing, right? Sure. So manufacturing continues to drive our economy in Indiana. And perhaps that's a good thing, but I'd like to think that our new Commissioner of Workforce Development is going to be able to help as we try and move toward having a workforce that can speak to high-tech jobs in a much larger way than we have. I mean, it's great to have the manufacturing jobs, but if we're going to boost median income, it's going to come with high-tech jobs.
Yeah. Laura, your take on the numbers and turning that ship, because you talk about the training, it's a big ship to turn.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
It is, absolutely. And I think I sound like a broken record when I'm on here all the time, but a lot of it really begins with education. And we're doing quite a bit in terms of STEM. We're doing quite a bit, especially to get tech jobs. We're doing quite a bit along those ways, but it really does start very early on. And I think making sure that people have access, as we talk about that digital divide, I know we're going to talk about that maybe a little bit later today, but making sure that people can access the internet with their computer, not just with their smartphone. I think that's really going to make a difference, because unfortunately what we're seeing now is we've got a lot of people who are working harder than before, and they're just not getting ahead.
Yep. Let's talk about that now, that broadband issue, certainly a huge issue, high-speed internet access. Certainly in some areas of the state it's great, in other areas it's not. And a report came out this week from the Indiana Broadband and Technology Association basically saying things are getting better, but still there's a ways to go.
Well, there is, and we mentioned a moment ago digital divide as an issue. We have haves and have-nots, if you will, with respect to broadband, and for the haves, that broadband report speaks to how much better things have gotten. Right, the fact that we now have over 90% with 10 megabytes per second access, which is really sort of the standard these days, and but we still have the have-nots. We have a lot of people that don't have any access to broadband, are still on dial-up, and that digital divide will continue to grow if we have counties where there is no access to broadband in the same way. Kids have to have the internet to do their homework. Right. Everybody has to have the internet to sign up for health care. So it's important to fix this.
How does it change? Because you got private sector, it's expensive to do it.
Yeah.
I think once we get that conversation so that it's equal to roads and bridges and the rest of infrastructure, when broadband and making that kind of investment does at a public policy perspective, then we'll have won, because then it's just another part of how are we going to fund our the interstate system. How are we going to, build a interstate between Indianapolis and Evansville? When it becomes that level of importance, then we'll be there.
Yes.
Do you sense that at the State House?
Well, I think we've got to get there. I think we've got a governor who really appears to want to advance a technological platform where people are more educated. Students, I know he has initiatives for former offenders, but they have to have access for it. And so I think if we can make that leap, and I think the other part of the State House is you have to show what the returns are going to be. You can't just say this is great and it's going to work for everybody. You have to show them, but you do have legislators, I would assume, who are really impacted in these communities where they are still on dial-up. So it's a great way to really bring the message to them. Maybe Norris and I can work on that in our free time. I'll get on that.
Yes. You talk about the tech economy in Indiana, and certainly here in central Indiana, a big boost from a venture capital standpoint this week. Springbuck, a startup company based here in Indianapolis, landing $20 million of venture capital. Xylo, another startup software company, a spin-out from High Alpha, over $9 million. So almost $30 million of VC coming into Indianapolis, two companies, is a positive sign.
It is, and we were talking about before we went live, still grossly underfunded in venture capital, so we need more of these deals, and we need more homegrown venture capital deals. But it is a great sign, and especially love to see one of the High Alpha groups spin out, becoming successful. Just a fabulous group of people that are involved with that have done a great job for Indianapolis. So yes, positive, need more and more and more, though.
The money will go, though, where there are good ideas, right?
Yep.
Where there are great ideas. And the thing for Springbook and both for Xylo is that they have great ideas and great platforms. And so that's we need more think tanks. Yep. We need more opportunity to develop those really good ideas. And I believe the money will flow from there.
Good ideas and talent, as
yes,
we were
talent,
talking
right.
about, to
Absolutely.
be sure.
Yes.
Back to the State House, another issue that continues to get a lot of attention is Sunday alcohol sales and the expanded cold beer sales. That didn't fare so well, certainly. But Laura, as you look at this, it appears as though the Sunday appears that Sunday sales seems to be on a track for passage.
Yeah,
Agree, disagree?
I agree. I'm hopeful. I remain cautiously optimistic. I think that every year we come back to this and we talk about it and we talk about it some more and we talk about it some more. And what is always disappointing to me, though, is that the will of the people clearly want this, but there's always that haggling over those special interests.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate because we are really, really behind in a lot of different ways. And I know we were talking about this earlier, but I just don't understand why we keep having to have the same discussion every single year.
And
Let's just get it done.
As much, sorry about
No,
that.
you're
as
fine.
much as we get, this national publicity from a food perspective and sports, it's things like this that still kind of keep us in the light of what's Indiana doing? Why you can't get by these issues? So it seems small, and yes, hopefully we will get there this year. But let's just progress past these issues that are 100 years old.
Yep. At one time, Indianapolis had an outdated old airport. Now that's changed. Certainly, I think 10 years plus now, maybe, with the quote-unquote new airport. Record numbers again for 2017.
I mean, everybody knows it's a fabulous airport.
Right.
I mean, going through there is a joy. It's still a nice size. The number of direct flights is still the key, something I know that's near and dear to your heart, Gary. Been talking about for years and years.
Absolutely.
The more of those that we get is going to help everybody out, and that has increased just even within the last couple of months. So. Fabulous place to be.
I travel a lot. I would rather take one plane than two.
Right.
But as important as that is to me, my clients coming in don't want to have to take two planes to get here. And so the more direct flights we can add, we're going to continue to grow those numbers.
Only have 30 seconds. We'll give you the last word, Norris. Colts coaching search for head coach. Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator with the Patriots, seems to be the guy. Is he the guy?
I think he's the guy. I think that he has learned from the Denver failure, I guess you can call it that. I think he's learned from that. I think there's an opportunity for some growth. I think that he is the right person to hopefully take Andrew Luck to the next level. He's great with quarterbacks, and quite frankly, that's the franchise.
All right. Norris Cunningham, Laura Beck, Robert Herzog, thanks very much.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.